Welcome to Aston Means Business, a podcast from Aston Business School. My name's Steve Dyson, and I'm a journalist who's interviewing some of the UK's top business academics and entrepreneurs who've studied here at Aston University. This podcast has been going since October 2019, and there are now more than 40 previous episodes that you can find and listen to by simply Googling Aston Means Business. Today's episode is entitled How Staff Wellbeing Can Drive Business Success. And we're going to explore this subject with Marc Hornby, the co-founder of Caviar Chips hospitality group, which includes a UK-wide bespoke catering business, a boutique destination venue for weddings, and events called Stockton House in Shropshire, the Virgin and Castles pub in Kenilworth, and the number 34 Garden and Grill restaurant in Warwick. Hello to you, Marc.
Hey, Steve. Nice to speak to you again. Are you all right?
I'm fine, thanks, Marc. And yeah, it really is good to speak to you again. For our listeners who may not have heard you before, we spoke to you both back in April 2020 in episode 13 of our first series, and also in August 2020 in the 7th episode of our second series. And I want to start today's podcast, Marc, by congratulating you, because I understand you've won a Business Wellbeing Award. What was that called, and for which part of your business did you win it, and why have you won it?
Yeah, thanks so much. We're really pleased by this. So we won a Staff Wellbeing Award, and it was from the British Institute of Innkeeping, and they had an awards program for National Innovation in Training Awards. And it was really interesting. If I'm honest, I wasn't aware of it, and they reached out to us because they'd been following us for some time about the different work that we do across of our businesses. And they suggested that we entered, and they wanted to put us forward, which was really nice to hear. Nice to see that people had been paying attention and noticed some things that we've been doing. So we put our Caviar and Chips business forward, and we won, like I say, Staff Wellbeing Award. And the British Institute of Innkeeping were looking for businesses that look after their employees holistically. So I guess it's where it goes a little bit deeper than paying lip service or doing tokenistic things within the workplace, but kind of like, how do we look after our team and our colleagues, not just at work, but how do they manage balance of work and home life? How do we do flexible work? How do we do flexible rotas? Financial well-being, mental well-being, social well-being, the work that we do in the community, a whole host of things. It was really nice. Firstly, not to just be awarded it, but great that such a great body are recognizing the importance of it in the industry, and particularly in the hospitality industry. Fundamentally, why Jonathan and I started the business was to be a great place to work. So really nice that industries are starting to look at this and recognizing businesses that do it.
You mentioned Jonathan a few times, and just for our listeners, we're talking about your business partner, Jonathan Carter-Morris, that he's a co-founder of the business with you, of course.
Yeah.
But before we go into more detail about what you've done with your staff, I want to remind our listeners about that success, because your businesses were faced with the huge obstacle of COVID-19 at such a crucial stage of their birth and development back in 2020. For example, when I first spoke to you just over 2 years ago in April of that year, just weeks after the UK went into its first lockdown, Caviar and Chips was unable to deliver any service because no wedding receptions were allowed at all. Bring us up to date on where you are with Caviar and Chips now.
Oh my gosh. That feels like a million years ago, but also very recent as well. And I still feel, and we're still obviously feeling the impact of coronavirus and COVID-19, and the whole industry is, and it's not just our industry but many others. So I guess, gosh, we're now a business that's 5 years old. So in March we celebrated being 5. So that in itself feels like a milestone to get to. We're over the moon and a bit overwhelmed and surprised that we managed to get to becoming 5. We have over 100 people on our payroll now, which is incredible. We've created over 100 jobs, which is really exciting. Get back to 2020 when, gosh, the world went into lockdown and nobody just didn't know what do you do? What happens when you go into lockdown? We just couldn't, you can't fathom that kind of stuff. And maybe it's something that's on the business school program now, but certainly wasn't when we were doing our MBA at Aston. What happens when you go into a global pandemic? Don't know. There was no textbook written then. So Yeah, so Caviar and Chips. So we had a catering business back in 2020. So we were delivering weddings and events, and we had 120 weddings booked in that year. We'd just opened our first pub, the Virgins in Castle in Kenilworth, and we'd opened our doors with a grand opening the week before, Friday the 13th, which we joked would be unlucky, but we'd make it lucky. Kind of feels like lockdown was our fault. So the week after we'd done our grand opening of the pub, we had to close the doors and work out what to do. So back in 2020, that's what our businesses looked like. We had to then postpone all of those weddings. So I think I've talked to you last time that one of our core values is about being client led. And so we literally just fell onto our values to go, so how do we navigate our way through this? Well, let's have a look at our values. We're all about being client led. So we'll do what our clients want us to do. And thankfully, in the majority of cases, they just wanted to postpone the date and find a new date. So we helped them do that. And we're still delivering weddings this year that are as a result of having to be postponed from 2020. Um, and we still got weddings next year, actually, when I think about it, that were postponed in 2020. So we're still feeling the impact of COVID. With the pub, yes, we had to close the doors, and then we could open them later on that year, and then close them again and open them again. And I think we had to close them a third time, if memory serves. And then, there was that aspect of you couldn't have people inside the pub, but you could have food outside. And gosh, the hardest bit was trying to understand the rules so that we could keep people safe and also keep people informed, because quite often guests would come to us and say, what is it that we can do? And so we had to try and work out so that we felt informed and that they would feel safe with us. And also what we did a lot of work around our community, particularly within the pub, in the community of Kenilworth, and just reaching out and working with them and supporting people where we could, because we had the facilities, we had kitchens, we had food, but we also knew that there was a lot of elderly residents in the area that were isolated. So we worked with some COVID support groups, and we would make food for some of the elderly. And again, that just felt like a good thing to do, the right thing to do, great to be working with other businesses. And I think what we noticed during that time is a lot of businesses came together just to help each other, help the NHS where we could, because, well, we just all kind of needed to look after each other, really. And so whilst it was a difficult time, a really big struggle, for making money and being business led, and the whole commercial world just went to pot. It was more a time about coming together and looking after each other, which was great to see and feel in a strange way lucky to be part of. Nice that we could pull together and look after one another. So that was good. Since then, we've obviously been allowed to do weddings again. So weddings opened up last year, and I remember we could do our first weddings with groups of 15, then groups of 30, and then people weren't allowed to stand and dance, and so you'd go to a wedding and it was like, no, everyone sit down, don't dance, there's music on, but you're not allowed to dance. And so that was unusual. And then there was people with masks on at weddings, and yes, it was difficult, but we worked our way through. And, at the end of the day, people were getting married and celebrating love. And, that was just lovely to see families coming together, because we'd all been in our homes for such a long time. When you saw 30 people together in a room, it was weird and strange. And we were all going through that together. And so it was nice to see a return of hospitality, groups and families coming together that hadn't seen each other for a long time. So it was nice to be part of that.
How did you manage to survive on two fronts, really? I'm thinking as a business journalist, in terms of money, investment, finance. How did that survive? For instance, with your the main wedding catering business, having all those things cancelled, but also staff-wise, how did you manage to either lay off staff or keep them pending on some kind of government assistance scheme? How did all that work?
Yeah, I don't know. No, but we managed to get our way through it. So I guess fundamentally we said we weren't going to lay anyone off. Everyone was going to keep their jobs. It was kind of a pledge that Jonathan and I made on day one. We weren't eligible for any grants or funding. There was grants announced, but we weren't eligible for them, which was unfortunate and a shame. We did take advantage of the loans, which we're still repaying for. We had a bit of cash flow, which we had to manage. We looked at all of our expenditures and cut back on what we didn't have to spend, i.e., we weren't going to use a van for a while. So, did we need to pay for a lease for that, or could we delay it? Any kind of expenditure that was going out on a monthly basis that we weren't going to use, we looked to cut that straight away. We took advantage of the government furlough scheme, which paid to around about 80% of people's wages. But then we decided we didn't want people to be short on their pay, so we topped that up ourselves, which came out of our pay. I guess one of the things we also look to do is how do we leverage money now so that it keeps us going. And so one of the things we were able to do is introduce like a save the date deposit. So you could book your wedding with us today, and we came up with a small deposit fee of like £500, and then your wedding date would be saved in the future. So people were still able to book us, even though we weren't able to deliver their weddings there and then. And so that still kept money coming in, which actually did really help us, and also kept us relevant because we were being really proactive with our comms and our marketing and talking to our clients and prospective clients, because lots of people were at home and had time on their hands. And so it was a perfect opportunity for us to position ourselves almost like a thought leader within the sector and be proactive with our comms and marketing so that people would come across us and then book us for their future weddings, which we're now delivering kind of like this year, next year, and into the year after.
Just to give us an example of the weddings volume, how many did you do last week? How many have you got in the next month or for this summer, for instance?
Yeah, sure. So last week we did 5 weddings last weekend, and 2 during the week, so 7 last week. This weekend we've got 4 weddings coming up, and one's in Dorset, one's in Devon, one's in Shropshire, one's in Warwickshire. So we're a UK-wide business, and so it's been great to scale back up again. So this year we'll probably deliver around about 140 weddings. We've capped it at around about 5 weddings in any one day. So we've put in place an infrastructure and a team that allows us to scale. So again, we're a bespoke caterer. So all of our menus are unique and everything we do with our clients is unique. But behind the scenes, we try to put processes and systems in place so that we have a production kitchen in Birmingham, for example, and we probably have anywhere between 12 and 15 chefs in there creating and crafting menus all through the week. And then typically on the Friday or the Saturday morning, food then gets distributed to the country, wherever it is that we might have a wedding. And then it's the team on the day that set up a pop-up, almost like restaurant, set up a kitchen, deliver that to a dining room of anywhere between 60 and 200 guests. And in some cases, we'll do drinks in a bar and things like that.
In short, Mark, you've come out of it healthy. The business is working. You've survived.
Yeah, which is remarkable. And we just feel super lucky that it kind of feels like those businesses that have survived a pandemic have done really well. And, we feel super fortunate because of our team that have stayed with us, that have worked with us, that have gone that extra mile because, crikey, people have had to work, in some cases, long hours or do, like you've heard, we travel all over the country. And we're really lucky. Like Jonathan and I always wanted to recruit people better than us. And I feel like that's been part of our success, is that we've been lucky to find great people that share our values, that buy into our vision and our purpose. And that's really helped us, because without the team around us, we wouldn't be able to do what we can do now.
And we'll come on to your team a bit later because I want to talk specifically about your staff wellbeing policies. But before I do, I just want to ask one more question about the catch-up, really. And I'm
Yeah.
kind of catching up on the complexity of your business as well.
Uh,
And I'm just thinking that you're both gluttons for punishment, because
mm,
not only did you have Caviar and Chips, the wedding caterer, not only did you open Virgins and Castle Pub in Kenilworth a week before lockdown and somehow managed to keep that going as well, but you've also opened recently a new business called the Number 34 Garden and Grill Restaurant in Warwick. And on top of all that, you've also got Stockton House, your boutique wedding venue in Shropshire. How on earth did you manage to keep all 4 balls juggling in the air?
yeah, I guess, from the outside, it probably does. When you say it back to us, you think, oh, why did we do that? But, I guess whilst these businesses sound like separate businesses, and they all come under the umbrella of Caviar and Chips. And there are kind of like there's synergy between each of the businesses, and there's a reason why we did them. So for example, Stockton House is our own boutique wedding venue and operates in a bespoke way, much like Caviar and Chips catering. So when we were doing our catering business, we were going around to all of these venues around the country, and obviously we'd spot things that like, oh, I'd do that and do that and maybe I'd do that differently. So then we were like, well, what happens if we got our own venue? So I live on this lovely estate in Shropshire, and so I just approached the landlord, I guess, and said, do you have a barn? We thought we were going to take over a barn at the time, because we thought we might convert one. And they didn't have a barn, but they had this empty, stately home. And they didn't know what to do with it. So I guess we came up with a proposition around how we could make it become a wedding venue. And we've worked with what's called the Apley Estate in Shropshire. And together we formed a partnership where we're bringing back this grade 2-star 18th century house. It was dilapidated and had no purpose. And now it's going to be a beautiful wedding venue opening in August. And we've done that in partnership with them. And it's similar with Number 34. So Number 34 is a restaurant in Warwick. It was this kind of themed racehorse pub. So it was called the Racehorse. And again, wasn't really working very well, was declining in business and trade. It's owned by Everard's, which is a brewery in Leicestershire, same brewery that we have for Virgins and Castle. They saw what we were doing with Virgins and Castle and approached us and said, would you like to take on what was the Racehorse? We said no at first because we were so busy. And then they said, think about it again. You will really enjoy it. It'll be great. And we're like, oh, okay. So we had to think about it quite laterally because we didn't feel we could make the current Racehorse work. We had to come up with a different concept. So I'm plant-based and vegan myself. The world is opening up into being more sustainable, environmentally friendly. People are more conscious about the food, where provenance of food comes from. So we wanted to create a place that was half plant-based and half celebration of great British farming, sustainable fishing from UK shores. We bring the outdoors in, so it's quite a botanical environment, and we think about well-being and what it's like to be in this restaurant. So this was the concept that we came up for Number 34 Garden and Grill, which then Everard's bought into, and then we turned that around in just a couple of months' time and opened in March. So, whilst these sound like separate businesses, they are linked with the partners that we currently work with, and our clients and our guests move around each of these businesses. So our clients at Stockton House have eaten at Virgins and Castle. Our clients in Caviar and Chips have eaten at Number 34. We get wedding bookings from Number 34 in Caviar and Chips. And we almost have this ecosystem where we're in a great place now where people are buying into our brands because of our ethos and values. And I spoke to a client whose wedding we did last weekend, and they phoned me up and said the food was amazing. They want the brownie recipe, and then they said, we want to keep on enjoying your food and your hospitality, so we're going to book into the pub next week, which was lovely to hear. And it doesn't matter which brand you're in or what team you're going to be looked after, that you're buying into this concept of great food, great hospitality, and an experience that's all about creating moments and memories, because again, that's the purpose of our business.
The theme which comes through to me when you're talking about those four separate businesses is one of people, really. People, both in terms of your suppliers, your customers, and constantly you're mentioning your staff and how loyally they've served you. So let's concentrate back on your staff because they are obviously so crucial to the business. And I want to
Yeah,
return to where we started this interview with the news of your Wellbeing Award. You mentioned it in brief, but give us some more details on how you won this in terms of how it works on a day-to-day basis across your four business arms. How does
sure.
it work for staff members?
So I guess, it starts from even before people join us. Um, if I go back just over 5 years now, when Jonathan and I first started the business, we were sat in Aston Business School doing our MBA saying, shall we set up a business together? We feel like frustrated entrepreneurs and we didn't know what business to do. It's like, wow, how do you find that aha moment where you get the idea of let's do whatever the business is? We just knew we wanted to work together. And so we said, well, we were frustrated and a bit struggling a bit to come up with ideas. So what we said is, why don't we come up with what the structure of the business is first, and then maybe that aha moment will hit us. So Jonathan and I have both come from very different backgrounds. Jonathan comes from a background of hospitality. He's been a chef since he was like 19 years old, so 20 odd years as a chef, ran restaurants, hotels, bars, and been front of house, back of house, and seen that hospitality industry. I come from a background of sales and marketing, blue chip brands, I've worked in some quite big companies around the country. And, we've both suffered in our own ways around that. What's it like to go to work and be able to be yourself? Um, do you know, I personally haven't suffered with mental health problems myself, but my family and my wife has. My wife suffers with depression and anxiety. And so I see that on a day-to-day basis. And when I used to go to work, I'd leave her at home, and sometimes she'd be in a dark place, and I'd go to work and feeling I couldn't share that with anybody. It didn't feel safe. It didn't feel like there was that kind of open language. And so when Jonathan and I got together, we said, if we're going to create a business, let's create one where people can come to work, be themselves, and have the opportunity to thrive, and think about it as, a safe space. Like, people exist outside of work. They have home lives. They have, crikey, we've seen it so much in the last couple of years. Everybody kind of carries problems or difficulties or challenges, whatever they may be, and everyone's is different and disproportionate. And some people's are really big, some people's are really small, but fundamentally, every person is different. And we wanted to create a place where everyone could be the best version of themselves. So that's how we started our business. It just so happened to be that we then went into food, drink, hospitality, catering. And so the very first nugget was, let's create this great place to work for. And then it's all, what does that mean? So we worked with a consultancy called Next Steps. And there's a great person that who's Jonathan's wife, just so happened, was Gemma. And Gemma became our head of people and helped us create a people strategy that at its core had well-being. And when we talk about well-being, we don't just talk about how are you today and how are you feeling. We talk about mental health, physical health, financial health, social well-being. And so we come up with pillars of well-being, if you like, that are the fabric of everything that we do in our business. And we talk about this openly across our social and digital media. We team up with places like Mind. This week was Mental Health Awareness Week. So we talk about some of the things that we do in our business that help create this open, safe environment. I guess when people join us and they first, actually, if I think about it, come for interviews, we talk about this open environment where it's a safe place to be. We have a focus on well-being. And, that's important for people to understand when they come to interview, that this is the kind of culture that we wanted to create. And so whenever we do interviews, we start off by our values. And our values are that we're client-led, that we're collaborative, creative, and positive. And if the people that we're interviewing kind of buy into those values and demonstrate those values, then there's a very good chance they'll thrive in the culture that we have. Then when they join us, we straight away buddy them up with somebody. So somebody already within the business, and it might be a different part of the business or a different role, but fundamentally that they've got somebody that they can go and talk to that isn't their line manager, and they can say, what do you do when whatever? Just so they've got a bit of advice and guidance. We have induction plans and objectives that are clear. We work with them around making sure that everyone's got a one-to-one in place with their line manager. We also have training and development in place for line managers. We have coaches in place. We do something called MBTI, which is Myers-Briggs training. So for our colleagues, they go through this Myers-Briggs questionnaire, which helps them understand what are their strengths, where do they get their energy from, what do they gravitate to, and so to share with you. So for example, when I do Myers-Briggs, I come out as a campaigner. And so I'm somebody that's just like, tell me what makes you happy, what makes you energized, and let's go make it happen. And I'm probably a bit of a dreamer, and I'm like, go for the moon and you'll get to go for the stars and you'll get to the moon kind of guy. Whereas Jonathan, for example, when he does Myers-Briggs, he's kind of like charismatic, he loves celebration, rewarding team. And so together we kind of make that combination. Where our weaknesses are, though, or the things that we need to develop, is kind of like administration. Kind of like we tend to screw things up and start again, whereas we need good people in place to help us do processes, systems, etc. And so when people join us, we go through this Myers-Briggs training. And again, it gives us a common language to be able to talk about, this is where I get my energy. And when you see me in times of stress, this is why I'm feeling stressed, and how that stress manifests itself. So if you see me withdrawing, it's probably because I'm stressed. And then when we all go through that training and development together and share that common language, it helps us make it more specific, rather than saying, you kind of got permission to be able to say, I don't like that or I don't enjoy it. That's fine. It's not that you say, well, therefore, Mark, you'll never have to do admin again, because that's not realistic. It's more a case, it'll probably take me longer. I'll probably be in a bit of a rubbish mood. And so when it comes out of it, please either give me a hug or, like, let's go and do something fun, or let's go for a walk, or whatever it is. But just understanding and measuring it is really important. Whenever we start a meeting, we check in with each other and say, so how are you arriving today? And we do this in a little bit of a daft way. So sometimes it might be like, what color are you? Or if you're an animal, what animal would you be? Or if you're a celebrity, what celebrity would you be? And so again, it's a way for people to talk about their feelings without having to be too specific, if that makes sense. And then we do exactly the same at the end of a meeting or at the end of an event. So at the end of a wedding, for example, we'll go, so how was that for everybody? Everybody gets into a circle, whether you're a chef, a kitchen assistant, or a lead host, and we go around the group and say, so let's score today out of 10, because 10 then gives it a measure. And again, it makes it something that you can talk around. So someone might say, today it was a 6 for me. And then we'll go, so why wasn't it a 10? Well, it wasn't a 10 because, I don't know, I dropped something, or I went to the wrong table, or I spilt gravy over the bride. Oh, heaven forbid. And so, then that gives us a way that everybody gets a voice. Like, everybody should be able to review and feedback. And then what we do is we collate all of that feedback from every event, and we bring that together to the next week's operations meeting and say, so here's some scores that we got from this one. Hopefully they're all 10s. If they weren't a 10, it was 6, and it was because whatever, we forgot something, didn't do something, etc. But fundamentally, everyone buys into this. Everyone feels like they've got a voice and has got a voice. And what it does is it continuously improves our business. And also, like I say, and again, going back to what we wanted, was it creates a safe space where everyone is able to talk about their feelings, no matter what their feelings are. Like, feelings are valid. If you feel away, you feel away, whether it's right or wrong. And so hopefully together, and having that common language, we can create a culture where everyone feels safe, can thrive, and do the things that energize them.
It's fascinating detail, Mark. And I guess the focus point that I just want to quickly ask you about, because it's the title of the podcast, how staff well-being can drive business success. I know it's an obvious question because your businesses are successful, but do you feel that they are driven in part by the success of that staff well-being philosophy and practice?
Yeah, I really do. And, we talk about this quite a lot within our sector as well, because it's something that we believe in, Jonathan and I personally, and everyone that works within our business really believes in. And I would love to see more of it across businesses. And it's great to see it being a language. Great that we're doing this podcast, because I think it doesn't matter what business you're in. It can be any sector. It can make such a difference. And just because it's nice to be nice. We need more kindness in this world. That's not a bad thing. And I'm sure it can be measurable. I'm sure and we do staff surveys, we do reviews, we look at sickness days and absenteeism, and we look at retention rates, and all of these measures are increased because of the work that we do around well-being. The thing is, though, it's long term, and you have to be authentic about it. You can't just do it in a tokenistic way and do a one-to-one and then forget to do it for the next 4 months. It's something that kind of has to be, and like I said to you earlier, it's part of our people strategy. It's a core part of our business. We spend just as much time on our well-being as we do on our food and drink. That check-in at the beginning of the day, that check-out at the end of the meeting, being consistent with it and doing something with the feedback is really important. Otherwise, people just think you're doing it for the sake of doing it. But I would say, if we didn't do that kind of stuff, you wouldn't recognize the business that we are today. And again, it goes to our guests and our clients as well. We get constant feedback saying, your team look happy. Your team were nice to be with. It was a pleasure doing business with you. Even when our clients, we invoice them, we want it to be pleasurable. When we invoice our supplier, we want it to be pleasurable. Like, we should be a nice business to do business with. And I think it would be lovely if all businesses were nice to do business with, because they invest in things like well-being and looking after each other. And that it's not just a tokenistic kind of thing, but it's something that it's just a part of, and the fabric of every business would be wonderful.
Marc Hornby, the co-founder of Caviar Chips Hospitality Group, which includes a UK-wide bespoke catering business, a boutique destination venue for weddings and events called Stockton House in Shropshire, the Virgin and Castles pub in Kenilworth, and the number 34 Garden and Grill restaurant in Warwick. Many thanks for joining Aston Means Business today.
Oh, pleasure speaking to you, Steve. Thanks for having me again.
And thank you, our listeners, to listening in to Aston Means Business, an original podcast series for Aston University. Remember, if you've enjoyed today's episode, you can find earlier episodes by simply Googling Aston Means Business. And if you're interested in studying anything to do with business, finance, and economics, why not check out what Aston University has to offer at www.aston.ac.uk/courses. We've also got a podcast series called Society Matters, which interviews top academics at Aston's School of Social Sciences and Humanities about current issues and concepts which shape our world and the way that people live. You can find those episodes simply by Googling Society Matters Aston. Meanwhile, we'll be back soon with more interviews with some of the UK's top business academics and entrepreneurs who've been involved in some way here at Aston. Aston Means Business. Thanks for listening.